Hello, BookTube. It's Tuesday, and that means Tag Tuesday, a venerable BookTube tradition that I have largely ignored in 2019. I don't like that. If I were to make plans for the new year, of course I'm not, but if I were to do that, one of those plans would be to redouble my efforts to honor these boring old BookTube traditions. I love them, no matter whether or not some of the cooler kids on BookTube think we're growing past them or not. Tag Tuesday is one of those. Also, Friday Reads. I figure it's the least I can do since I'm never invited to read-alongs because I smell. But I have a tag for you today, and it's a tag that seems a bit redundant because I've already done it. And so when I saw it, it suddenly, every once in a while, a tag will achieve a semi-viral status, either because it's incredibly original and fun, like the Has Steve read it tag that Brian at Mayberry Book Club made, or just that it happens to strike the zeitgeist. People notice it and want to do it. That's especially true with introductory tags that serve to introduce you and your channel to a broader audience. Those, I think, periodically gain a second life because we always have new people coming in, either making their own channels or following ours. And one of those tags is the Meet the BookTuber tag. And I thought, well, okay, it's fun to watch this, and it's fun to ground myself on the basics of these channels that I watch. But I can't do it myself because I've already done it. It was the linchpin, the sort of starting DNA for one of the epic 2-hour live streams that I did up in the old farmhouse in Vermont with Mark Richardson of Richardson Reads. I thought, well, everybody else can do this, but if they want access to my answers, they just have to watch that 2-hour live stream. And then I saw Mark himself do it. I thought, okay, well, then I guess what is slurred over wine in Vermont stays in Vermont. So I'm going to do today for Tag Tuesday, just to get my hand back in the game, I'm going to do the Meet the BookTuber tag. It's fun, and also I want to stay cognizant of the fact that a lot of you are new to the channel. I don't know how to look at my analytics. I don't know how to read them, but nevertheless, I know from comments and from emails that a lot of you have just found the channel, so it's an enormous backlog of videos. You might not have the I forget. Somebody actually emailed me. They did the calculation. No small feat. They calculated roughly how long it would take you to watch all of my older videos. It's an enormous amount of time. Operating on the assumption that no one wants to do that, I thought I would go over some basics here. No one wants to do that, and apparently not a lot of people want to delve into a 2-hour live stream by two crusty old grumpy guys. So we're going to do this. Was originally created by What Victoria Reads, and I have been watching. A whole bunch of people have started doing this all of a sudden. It's not a new tag, but a whole bunch of people have started answering it. So I thought it's just the basics of who you are. I most recently saw it on Brian at Bookish. I saw it on his channel, and it was fascinating. At one point in the video, he frustrated me, as he always does. He always frustrates you. All frustrate me in some way or other. At one point in the video, he mentions that he has 2 dogs, and it says, "Yeah, well, they're not in the camera shot right now. What do you know? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Well, humans have been doing it for 17,000 years. You could, I don't know, call them." Nobody wants to look at you. But anyway, the first question is, give us your name, age, and location. My name is Steve Donahue. It's the name of this channel, and it's also in print, published in lots and lots of places. I am well represented by name, and my age is 28. I know that that's a source of confusion to some of you, but only because in previous years I have declared that my age was 28, and some of you have correctly pointed out, well, how could your age stay the same year by year? And the answer to that involves lots of complex mathematical mistakes. Math is not easy. I'm sure you would all agree with that. So there's really no time to hash into it right now. But the answer to the question is 28. I am 28 years old. And my location is Boston, the greatest city in the world. Question number 2 is, do you have any siblings? And if so, where do you come in the sibling order? I do have siblings. I am the middle child. Question number 3 is, where do you work or go to school? As I mentioned in question number 1, my name is frequently printed because I am a professional book critic. That's Frida. Frida, no. There's a paper package on the floor. And Frida, my little, who's going to be mentioned in this tag, my little, this thing, is actually attacking the paper package when the floor is literally covered with toys, including some brand new ones. You are a spoiled little princess. You know that? You are. You're a spoiled little princess. But she's my spoiled little princess. So. All right, I'm going to put you down. There you go. And that gives you a little taste of another answer. So that is my answer to question number 3. I am a professional book critic. I don't have a teaching gig. I don't have a speaking gig. I don't have anything I don't have book contracts or work a night job or anything like that. I'm one of the country's only few remaining professional book critics, or I don't do anything else. I don't get paid for editorial duties. I don't get paid for anything other than book reviews. And it's all I do every day. So I have many venues, and I would like many more. I would like to be published everywhere. So if you have an in, second cousin once removed, a black sheep of the family, I don't care what it is. If you have an in at your local newspaper, provided they run regular arts-related material, provided they don't, a lot of local newspapers have been forced for budgetary reasons to pull content off the wires and just pay a yearly subscription for that and just run it. Instead of paying local freelancers or non-local freelancers to do original work for their paper. That's a terrible, terrible shame. But if you have a local paper anywhere in the world, preference given to my 3 I's, Iowa, India, and Ireland. But if you have a local newspaper anywhere in the world that you have access to or the ear of, and you know that they run original book content, book reviews, feel free to sing out in the comments field. I would be happy to appear in your local newspaper. And if you know this person or your connection, or if you are that connection to that local newspaper and you're writing, well, if you've published with the Boston Globe and the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post, then surely we can't afford you. You let me worry about that, okay? Anyway, so that's what I do. I don't go to uni anymore. That's what I do. I review books for a living. Question number 4, do you have any kids? Deb has appeared on this channel a few times. Those of you who are new to the channel will not have seen her. I have not been able to pry her out of her manatee cave in quite some time. But I will. I will eventually succeed in doing that. And Deb and I have been married quite a few times. None of the marriages have ever worked out. That hasn't stopped us from repeating our mistakes. And she's popped out a number of different kits. And we've never kept any of them. None of them ever seemed all that interesting. I mean, we gave them a week to get their bearings, but after a week, they still couldn't talk about books or anything else. So we largely just got rid of them. So the answer, I suppose, to the question technically is yes. I do have kids somewhere. Then question number 5, do you have any pets? Well, you've already seen one. I have a 10-pound miniature schnauzer named Frida, who is the real star of this channel. And who, hi baby, who's baby, who's the baby? Ooh. And who has grown up on this channel. I made a video with her chewing on a book in my lap when she was a tiny little nugget. Just a day after I got her. I got her from a friend who got her off Craigslist. So thought, oh, isn't that picture adorable? And then called me up literally the next day and said, well, this thing wants to eat and it's pooping and peeing all over the place. Do you still help out people with dogs? And I said, yes, I still help people with dogs. I wanted to say, what did you think was going to happen? Craigslist ought not to allow such things. You were taking on a 15-year commitment to a living being as emotionally and intellectually complex as you are. You were taking on a baby. Would you take a baby on Craigslist because you thought it was cute? No, because you would immediately assume babies grow up and they need thousands of dollars of care and tons of attention that you're not obviously going to give it. I didn't say any of that. Instead, I went over and I collected the little bean. I wasn't sure at first how it would go. Some of you who have been with this channel for a long time will remember that I used to have 2 other dogs on this channel, 2 old dogs, old, sweet, white-faced dogs. One was a fat, gassy basset hound named Lucy. And the other, her sister, for her whole life, was a beautiful black and white pointer named Malin. And Lucy died and Malin was very, very old and had spent her whole life viciously growling and barking at other dogs. She didn't like anybody that she thought posed even the slightest threat to Lucy, even though dogs did not pose a threat to Lucy because Lucy was covered in seal blubber from one end to the other. She was invulnerable to physical attack. But even so, Malin was extremely overprotective of her. And that habit, of course, by the time she got to be 15 and a half years old, that was a lifelong habit. And it didn't matter anymore what the original cause of it was. And so all the way back here, with tiny little Frida on my shoulder like that, just shivering in fear. She had no idea what was going on, of course. The whole way back, I thought, okay, well, you're going to have to barricade the puppy in one room and keep Malin in the other because Malin is going to want to kill this dog. But she didn't. She didn't. She was too tired. She was too weak by then. And she could also see that this little puppy was no threat to her whatsoever, no threat to anybody. So she put up with Frida. She endured Frida's little puppy antics. And by the time Frida reached that stage, that 8-9-month-old stage, when puppies really become a terror, when you really have to start introducing them to the rules. No rules for little puppies. None whatsoever. No point in it, and the only thing you're going to do is damage. But after a little while, I introduce my dogs to a few rules, not many. I don't want them chewing on electrical cords. I teach them one command, only one, for their whole life. They only learn one command from me. And that has to be carved in stone. That command is to freeze solid. Freeze without any hesitation at all and without asking why. Freeze when I give you that command. Just completely immobile. I don't even want you to move your head. Completely immobile like a statue if I give you that command. In the entire course of Malin's life, I only had to give her that command once. I've had many, many dogs where I never had to give that command. But I want that command. I obviously want that command. But by the time Frida reached that age, Malin was gone. So it didn't matter anyway. So right now, for one of the only times in my life, I have only one dog. And for one of the only times in my life, Malin and Lucy were two of the only other times. If you were to dig up old friends of mine and say, does Steve like dogs? Really old friends of mine. They would say, oh yeah, he does, beagles. Yeah, he's got a thing for beagles. And not just one beagle. If you go to his house, you'll be surrounded by beagles. He always has 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or more of them at a time. So yeah, it's Steve and beagles. And I don't have many dogs, and I don't have any beagles. I just have one little miniature schnauzer who's staring at me right now. I don't know why. Maybe she knows I'm talking about her. But anyway, question number 6 is, can you drive? And my original answer to this was no, I can't. I've never sat behind the wheel of a car in my life, and wouldn't have the first idea how to do it. And also, to be honest, I know I would stink at it. I'm too distractible. You learn, car drivers learn that sort of tunnel vision discipline early on. Most people want to learn how to drive when they're in their teens for the element of freedom that it gives them. I never needed that when I was in my teens. I had unimpeded access to an entire species that no one considered anything. So no one paid any attention to that, and I didn't need it. So I didn't do it. And now I think it'd be too late for me to learn that tunnel vision discipline. Although that was my original answer, but when I did a drunken version of this tag up in Vermont, Mark Richardson pointed out that that's just cars. But I know how to pilot sailing vessels. Almost any kind of one-person or even two-person sailing vessel I can pilot quite well. and the more I thought about it, the more I realized, okay, well, that's driving ships. Yeah, okay, fine. I can't drive any kind of gasoline-powered ship, but if it's wind-driven, I can. And also, I've ridden, if you want to extend it just a bit and call it driving, I've ridden almost every living creature that can be ridden on Earth. So whether I've wanted to or not, if it's been the means of local transport, then I have done it. So I'm an adept horseback rider. I've ridden camels, 1 hump and 2. I've ridden elephants, and even a yak. So I guess in a way, but not in the way that the question means. The question means, do you drive a car? And I've never driven a car. No, can't imagine how it's done. I marvel in envy at when I'm with most drivers for all the stuff that they pay attention to and all the judgment calls that they make. You make 100 judgment calls a second. And like when the Richardsons come to get me here in Boston to bring me and Frida up to the little old farmhouse in Vermont. I watched the things that all the thousand unspoken negotiations that they do just to get out of the city alive. And it's amazing. I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could. And question number 7, what is or was your favorite subject at school? And once I came around to having a favorite subject, it was literature. It was English. It was reading and writing. I didn't, for a long time, didn't care about such things. But once I did, oh boy, I made up for lost time, and I have been doing ever so since. I love them. I love reading and English. I love the study and the thinking about works of literature. I don't so much like formal book criticism. Formal literary criticism tends to drive me nuts. It's all jargon and idiom. It's meant to be impenetrable, and it's meant to make sure that it references the next 30 people that you're going to meet at the next literary conference, some of whom you'll want to sleep with, and some of whom you'll want to sleep with you. Formal literary criticism, I have no use for. I've almost never read any of it that was any good. But in terms of, like, for instance, spirited appreciation, spirited digging in to literature. I don't get to do a whole lot of digging in my profession because I have, in most book reviewers don't have much room. There's only so much digging you can do in 800 words. but I love reading it, and I love doing it too. When I write longer than that, I always like doing it. So picture somebody like the literary writings of Christopher Hitchens or Martin Amis or something like that. People like that. So not somebody that you would call literary criticism, but more along the lines of the justifying the ways of man to God and whatnot. The more along the lines that were started by John Dryden and popularized by people like Addison and Lamb and Samuel Johnson. Something like that. A spirited public discussion of literature, but not so much school-based literary criticism. And then also writing. I should point out writing. I've spent a great deal of time writing in an academic sense, if you want to call it that, including a couple of workshops. Then question number 8 is, what is your favorite color? My favorite color is red. Then question number 9 is, what is your favorite smell? This is going to be a bit predictable, but it's dogs. Anything dogs. The milky smell of a young puppy. The old salty smell, the salted meat smell of a very old dog. The smell of a wet dog. The smell of a dog that's been freshly exercised. The smell of a dog who's been freshly exercised and hasn't been washed in a while. Dogs in all their panoply, dogs of all their kinds, dog smells are my favorite smells. And then the last question, number 10, what is your favorite book or top 3? And when I was watching, I've said this many times before on this channel that my favorite book it's Ovid's Metamorphoses. It's the Metamorphoses by the Roman poet Ovid, which is an epic poem all about change. It's all about how things change into other things. And it is stories within stories within stories, and it's a masterpiece of narrative entanglement, just incredible when it comes to that. I never get to the bottom of it. I love it dearly. But I've mentioned it so many times that I thought I'd take a leaf from Brian at Bookish when I think he's answered his favorite question a few times as well. So instead, in his video, he decided to give you his favorite 3 Balzac novels. He's a big fan of Balzac, and just had a read-along of Cousin Pons that he excluded me from because of how bad I smell. Hoping to horn my way into the next Balzac read-along, because he had a great crew that joined him. But in the spirit of that kind of dodge of the question, I'm going to do the same thing, only with Anthony Trollope, the Victorian novelist par excellence, who I love more than anyone in the world. I love the novels of Anthony Trollope. And if I had to name my 3 favorite Anthony Trollope novels, the first one would be Orley Farm, which we will get to. If we do Trollope read-alongs in 2020, we will get to Orley Farm. And then the second one is The Prime Minister. It's a big, fat political novel in the Palliser series. And then the third one would be the direct sequel to The Prime Minister, called The Duke's Children, which is my favorite Trollope novel. That is number 1, my favorite Trollope novel. So I'm gonna dodge the question that way. But I'm gonna wrap this up for now. That is Tag Tuesday. That is the Meet the BookTuber Tag. I have a lot of other videos I want to make. I'm feeling a little under the weather, as I think you can probably tell by how often I have grabbed Frida to show her to you. Right, baby. She's sitting right there staring at me. She never does that. My baby. My baby. My baby girl. I think she knows that I'm not feeling all that good. Oh, you're a good girl. This is not her usual activity mode. She's usually not a friendly, quiet dog. She's usually very violent and very, very frantic. But anyway, I have yeah, I have lots of other videos I want to do. We'll see if I can. But I wanted to do this one because Tag Tuesday has been neglected by me. And I don't want that to stay true. I want to pay more attention to all the BookTube staples. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.